Hello, this is Patrick, and welcome to some more Tesla news. I know it's been a couple weeks, but hey, man, there's pretty exciting stuff going on. Full self-driving. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new Model S and X deliveries and timeframes, Tesla Fire, a few other full self-driving. Elon was tweeting about it last weekend, saying that he was going to double the size of the full self-driving beta from like 1,000 to 2,000, and asked if anybody wanted in on the new beta. He asked if anybody wanted in, and of course everybody and their brother said yes. Tens of thousands of people. So then they said, well, we're going to do a beta button, and we're going to release it in about 10 days. So and then Elon updated it later, and he said, well, maybe next week's. And then last night, as of the recording of this video, he says the full self-driving beta has now been expanded to 2,000 owners. And we've also revoked beta access where drivers did not pay sufficient attention to the road. No accidents to date. So there's a selfie camera in the Model 3s and Ys, and not in the Model S and X's. I believe the new ones that are going to be coming will have it. And Green the Only, a Tesla white hat hacker, he had posted previously how this works. So they're not actually just spying on you 100% of the time. Instead, what it's doing is it's watching your gaze. And NVIDIA even had this technology back when they were using the older computers, where it can tell if you're looking towards the road, or if you're looking at a cell phone, or if you're asleep. And basically, it's the same technology that's being used in Super Cruise. They were going to use that instead of having to have your hands on the wheel, so you could have your hands free, and just as long as you're paying attention to the road. I guess they felt that the reaction time wasn't quick enough. And it isn't really, because sometimes the beta version of full self-driving, or in my case, navigate on autopilot for the freeway, there's some times where it takes some pretty mean jerks, or slams on brakes, and you got to really be able to take over instantly. And if you have your hands in a position where you can't do that, it could be really bad. So for the time being, while they're still training full self-driving, they want your eyes on the road and paying attention to take over at any moment. And this will get relaxed over time as the car gets safer to the point where you could sleep in the back seat. But it's not something that they want people doing when they've only got it, beta testing across 2,000 users. Elon also said that the next significant release in the full self-driving beta would be in April, going with pure vision, not even using radar. This is the way to real-world AI. And Elon said this before. He's like, well, basically a human is just two cameras on, a swiveling tripod gimbal. Because basically it has to look, you have to look around and see what's going on. Whereas a Tesla, or, any self-driving car, with all the cameras, can see 360 degrees with a little bit of redundancy even all the time. So it doesn't need to look around. So the driving should theoretically, just with vision, be better than, a human with their eyes, constantly looking around. And the reaction time should be able to be quicker. So in theory, the full self-driving should be better. Autopilot accident that happened with the Mobileye on Autopilot 1, the individual was watching a Harry Potter DVD while driving. And back then, you could pretty much not have your hands on the wheels unless the Tesla sensed it was unsafe. And then it would make you put your hands on the wheel. So you could go 10 minutes or more. In the very first versions, I went over an hour without having to put my hands on the wheel. Unfortunately, a semi pulled out in front of him, and he went underneath it and did not survive. The vision just assumed that it was an underpass. It didn't think it was an object. Then they released an update following this incident, where they used the radar as a primary sensor, so it could detect objects like that and hit the brakes. It became a primary sensor, and they talked about seeing the world via radar and how it could do a rough cloud point imagery based on the radar. And they made a big deal of it. So it's kind of interesting. They're kind of being like, well, vision's better now, and that it's better than radar. And they've said in the past that the mix is the way to go, right? This is where it's heading, is vision's the primary, and if there's something called into question, of course it would fall back onto the radar, and it'd fall back onto the ultrasonic sensors, because the radar and the ultrasonics, they can see in wavelengths that our eyes cannot. So if you're driving in the dark, or if there's rain or snow, those sensors can see better than the vision can. So there's situations where it's really either or. Or it's good to have backup. And Elon's talked about the redundancy a lot, and that's one of the main differences between the autopilot hardware 2.0 and 2.5, is they put additional redundancies into the system. In case one fails, it'll still work. In terms of like wiring harnesses, second radar, which apparently they say they're not going to use anymore. What do you guys think about the camera spying on you all the time? Now, I know you have to opt into it if you go into your Tesla menu and say, yeah, it's cool, you can go ahead and use my data for my gaze or whatever. They're not really looking for people picking their noses or anything that as far as I can tell, you never know. I mean, if there's a wreck, they're probably going to pull the data and look at what people are doing. And if you truly are paying attention, then you're good. I mean, it's Tesla's fault that the car wrecked or whatever, or in theory, if Tesla's following all the rules, it's somebody else that wrecked into you and you were paying attention. Staring at your phone, texting while it's driving for you, which is super convenient and technically works, you could get in a lot of trouble. There's been reports of people putting tape over the full self-driving camera, and it doesn't prevent you from using it, but maybe those are the people that got banned. Elon didn't totally specify which people were the ones getting banned. It's also interesting to note that the communications with the DMV over in California over the full self-driving are basically the opposite of what Tesla is saying to the owners of Teslas. It's kind of like, well, to the DMV, Tesla and Elon are like, you know what? This is just a self-driving assist. This is driver assistance. It's doing all the work, but ultimately the driver's the ones responsible. They're the ones giving the input, and they're the ones driving the car. So we don't need to do all your fancy reporting and everything for the full self-driving, autonomous level 5, whatever. But on the other side of things, Elon's on Twitter like, oh no, this is full self-driving. We're just calling it beta just so people be careful, but it really does everything. You don't have to do anything, no interventions. And you can watch the videos of it, and there are betas right now where they're making a lot of trips with no interventions. So it's doing everything, but you still got to be careful. The biggest issue people are having is it being too close to the letter of the law and hesitating a little bit too much. And that's also the biggest issue with the summon. Smart Summon works pretty doggone good, but it's slow and it hesitates. And it freaks people the heck out. There's no way I'd use it in a crowded Walmart parking lot, because it takes its time. It makes sure it's not going to hit anything. It kind of hesitates and jitters like it's, had too much caffeine or something. And people don't want to wait for it to get through the parking lot. And then there's times where it goes freaking fast, and it freaks me out. You'll see it just haul butt through the parking lot, and I'm like, whoa, that's kind of, I wouldn't drive that fast. And it's only 5 miles an hour, but still, it seems fast. So it's weird. It needs a lot of work, and it's that fine line of is it 100% to the law, or is it more like actual people drive? And that's why they're trying to use the AI neural net, and they're identifying all these little tiny edge cases right now on to what's going to be the best way for these cars to drive themselves. It's weird. They're basically reporting no hours to the DMV in California, saying, no, we're not test driving an autonomous vehicle. And then they're telling people on Twitter, oh yeah, it's full self-driving. They're not saying autonomous, but they're trying to give the impression that it's an autonomous car. So they're trying to have it both ways, and I'm sure the DMV's not happy about it. So we'll see how it works out. But yeah, it's even when it says right here that when Tesla releases the final city streets, it will continue to be an SAE Level 2 Advanced Driver Assist feature, and not a Level 3 system. So the full self-driving that we were buying and paying $10,000 for is still only a level 2. And there's all these different levels that the SAE has. Level 1 is like regular cruise control. Level 2 is, steering. It'll help you stay in the lanes and brake. Level 3 is where, under some conditions, it drives itself, but you still need to have somebody behind the wheel. And level 4, it'll drive itself under most but not all conditions, and that's where you don't really need to have somebody behind the wheel. And really the goal of full self-driving with the current hardware, I believe, is somewhere between like 3 right now and maybe 4. Elon says it's going to be level 5, though. He's saying all conditions. That's... I don't know. We'll see. There's people showing the beta running on dirt, so it could be. It's possible. It's not impossible. So, yeah, Tesla's going as far as to removing people from the beta program that aren't paying enough attention. They're still confident that they're going to launch the full self-driving subscription within the next few months, which means that they're going to be offering the city streets drivings in a couple months. Elon's saying that he was saying 10 days, 7 days ago. Now it sounds like possibly next weekend we're going to get a pretty expanded beta button for everybody that wants to download, with like a major release in April, which is, again, just another couple weeks away. This is Elon time, so you might take that by an extra year. I would personally bet on fall. Usually they come out with a new version of the Tesla software during the fall. I think this was originally intended to be the Christmas update that keeps getting pushed back, and they released part of it with all the noises that the boombox could make. The beta for full self-driving was obviously the next Fire update and hasn't hit. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens with the new model Plaids, the S and X Plaids. Although there's been delays. The Model S Plaid Plus, the one that has the 520 mile plus range, has been delayed until mid-2022. And that's probably because they're going to be using the new, bigger battery cells and testing them. They're still testing. So they wanted to put it in a non-mass market car. So, of course, they put it in the $150,000 Tesla, which they increased the price of $10,000 as well. So they must have had a lot of orders, and they know they won't have the volume for the batteries, so they are increasing the price. Other neat thing about these Model Plaids, I'm just calling them Model Plaids. The Tesla Plaids, or the refresh, they have the yoke steering wheel. And that's another big controversy across the United States on which states will support this yoke steering wheel, because some of them call for a circular steering wheel. People are debating on how this is actually going to work. If it will be kind of like dynamically, if you're trying to make a really sharp turn, it'll make it more sensitive so you don't have to spin it around in circles as much. Or if you maybe like a video game, you hold it to the left, the wheels keep turning. You don't actually have to turn the wheel as much. With the power steering, it'll assist more or something. I don't know how that's going to work, because it's not drive-by-wire, because it's mechanical. Or is it? Are they changing that? Elon said that they haven't announced all the features in the new refreshes, so it's obviously designed for full self-driving in the sense that it could not be there. I mean, they could have it just like fold into the dash, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they eventually change to drive-by-wire, so there's no mechanical function of the steering wheel. It would still have software priority, but essentially it would not have any physical connection to the wheels. That would make a lot of sense, because they got rid of the stocks. I mean, there's obviously no physical connection to the gears, so the drive, reverse, neutral, which there really isn't like a true neutral. It's kind of like a no regen type of neutral, even though it still does regen in neutral. I don't know, it's weird. Again, thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for your time. There's been some spy shots of these yoke steering wheels. There's a parking lot full of them over in Fremont. Elon said that they're still working on some details before they release these. The delivery dates have been pushed back to April on the Model X's that I know, because I have one on pre-order. Maybe they'll kick out some S's this month. Maybe they're waiting on the tax credit to come out, because man, that $7,000 sure would help out. What do you guys think? Yoke steering wheel, round steering wheel? I think the yoke's gonna be cool, mainly because then you can see the dash, or the binnacle display on the front. It won't cover it. It won't be in the way. Ultimately, you won't be just using the steering wheel that much, and when you are like racing, it'll be just badass. But yeah, that Plaid, if you didn't pre-order it, it went up another $10,000. So if you want to get everything all maxed out, you could spend $168,990. That is the most expensive Tesla to date. If you get full self-driving, the multi-coat red, all the bells and whistles, yeah, expensive, very expensive. Yet probably the best deal if you're trying to get a sub 2 second 0 to 60 car, because I don't think there is any unless you're spending over $1 million. So, and this is, as Elon has put it, a 7-seat sedan. Yeah, 7 seats. So he said they're bringing back the rear seats, the rear children jumper seats in the back. And in one of the flyover videos, people seem to have spotted it. So I had that in my first Tesla. I thought it was awesome. In fact, I could use it right now with my two little ones. They'd fit back there pretty good. I hope they fix the ventilation, because, yeah, unless you're in really good weather, that thing's pretty much useless. It does not keep the kids cool back there at all. And you got to be kids. I mean, like toddlers. They do put extra reinforcement in the back to keep them safe. There's so you can't just retrofit and put these seats in to an old Tesla unless you modify the frame of the car and put in this extra steel bar. The refreshes Teslas, S and X's, they have a new MCU 3. So just as everybody got to upgrade their MCU 1 to an MCU 2, this is the big infotainment system in the middle of the Tesla, they come out with a new MCU 3. And this thing's massive. It's an AMD Ryzen system on chip that people are saying is overkill for the performance. So this is basically the equivalent of a PlayStation 5, and it's gonna be great. I can't wait. Like, even the new MCU 2 is so much better than the MCU 1, but just watching YouTube, it's very laggy, and I think a lot of that could be software. The system just does so much for the car. Yeah, it'll be cool to have that kind of performance in a Tesla. There's also a lot to question, like there's 2 screens, there's one in the front, one in the back, there's multiple USB devices, so wireless controllers, multiple headsets, so people in the back could be watching something different than people in the front. Elon has confirmed that you can use the LTE in the back, so kids can watch, YouTube, Netflix, whatever, in the back. Also, the swivel on the main MCU in the front, it can tilt, there's a mod for that on the Model 3 and Ys. I think that's cool because by default it's slightly tilted towards the driver in the current Model S and X's. And then Tesla is just playing with prices. Standard range Model Y was here for like a week and then disappeared, went to an off menu a la carte. Now you can only get the long range Model Y on the website. Apparently if you call, you can still get the standard range. It's weird. And then they lower the price by $1,000 and they up the price by $500, and it's weird that they keep fluctuating the price. I think they have issues with the chips. Maybe that's the delay on the refreshed S and X's, is that MCU 3 chips are delayed, and they're waiting to they got everything done in the car, and they're waiting for the computer to slide in there. And so they're filling up the parking lot, and when those chips come in, they're going to put them all in all the Teslas, because it's delayed vehicles for every manufacturer in the United States right now. And that's why you can't get a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, whatever they're calling them now. I'm so frustrated by that, because it was an Xbox One, but I had an Xbox One like 20 years ago, and then it was an Xbox S, X, whatever, or Series X, and Microsoft has just had the worst ever in terms of naming stuff. Like, they skipped Windows 9. They went from Windows 8 to 10? Or, yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'll stop about my Microsoft rant. There's been a lot of news. Personally, just to kind of throw this in here, if you've stuck around with me for this 20 minutes of babbling, my leg's messed up. I'm not like I know it's way worse if somebody like breaks their leg, but it's been hurting since July, and getting around holding my new babies is really difficult. And so we've been troubleshooting this. Been seeing all kinds of doctors and imaging, and like I'm pretty sure they could fully recreate my leg now because they've done all kinds of ultrasounds and MRIs and X-rays and things on my leg. But hopefully they got a procedure. They're gonna get it fixed. It's some kind of a weird vein issue, but yeah, that's why the slowdown in videos. I've got 2 little babies and a messed up leg. Cybertruck. Yes, Cybertruck Factory is starting to look cyberpunk itself, according to Teslarati, and they're kicking this thing out. So hopefully the pandemic didn't slow them down too much, and the Cybertruck is coming. Elon says that it can power a camper, which makes sense. It's got a 240 volt on it. The question is after towing it up a mountain to use it, will you also power the camper? Hopefully you'll be able to regen on the way back down to make it home. At least that's my plan. I've actually done it in the X, and it works. You could basically almost run out the entire battery up the hill, and you can coast back into town. Because I live at the base of a mountain, basically. So it kind of works for me. I'm about 30 miles away from the mountain, and if I go up it and I make it there, when I come back down, I regen enough to make it home. Elon says they're going to unveil the Cybertruck next quarter when it starts to focus on production, like the final version of it. Pencils down. It's still up for debate on whether they made it slightly smaller or not, because they were going to make it a bit smaller, and then they decided not to make it smaller, and now it sounds like they still made it a little bit smaller, just so it'll fit into a normal garage. Although Elon says it doesn't need to be in a garage, because it's supposed to be a tank. You just park it outside. Although you still got to charge the thing, so everybody's got all their chargers in their garages. I could see issues there. Supercharging, the new biggest supercharger was going to be a drive-in over in Santa Monica. I guess they ditched the drive-in movie theater part of it, probably because the infotainment systems that they have now in the Teslas, when they originally planned to do that, weren't in the Teslas. That's kind of a bummer, but still cool. And I don't know, they could probably add it later on, but it's going to be a massive V3 station. Beaver, Utah is going to finally get a massive, I think it's 25 additional charging stations, V3. Woohoo! Because it was only 4 stations forever, and there were slow version 1s, and then they upgraded them a little bit, and I think we got like 12 stations now, and they're still V2. But that's always been the bottleneck on me when I go to Las Vegas, and I see a lot of people in Utah complaining about it constantly. Batteries, Tesla's secretly putting in a big battery project in Texas. Makes sense. They want a stable grid. Their new city, Starbase, where they're launching rockets. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments on anything I talked about, I monitor the comments and I'll reply. I'll incorporate them in the next videos. I've got this new CCS adapter that I got from China so that you can charge any Tesla on the CCS in America. The question is, which charging stations does it work with? And I'll get into that in the video. Basically, it requires firmware updates. It's kind of crazy. There's like a little battery inside the thing, and you can flash it. So when I got it, it worked on nothing. And then after I updated it, it worked on the majority of the stations I tried it out with. I'll go into that in detail in that video. But it's pretty cool. Now you can literally charge a Tesla on any outlet. So with the right adapters, it can be done. That was the final one that was like impossible to charge on, and with Electrify America, we're talking about thousands of fast charging stations across the nation that you now have access to. The adapter's expensive, but it works. I'll get into that in the video. If you have any other questions, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Walking Crow. You can email me, pox@twosmartguys.com. And I've also got a couple other videos of product reviews that I'm going to put out. So stay tuned for those. There's these little straps that you put in the second trunk, the little second hidden trunk in the Model Y. So thank you guys. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.